Hello horror geeks, and welcome back to TVgeek.com presents our video review series, in which today I'm looking at 2020's Fantasy Island. Now, I do want to note before I get things started that these video reviews aren't the only things we put up onto our site. As you can tell, if you look at the history here, there's large gaps of missing things, or you might be curious what we're thinking about particular movies. To do bigger movies, we don't always do video reviews. So if you head to TVgeek.com, down below you can see other written reviews for titles that aren't featured onto this channel, such as The Invisible Man from last week, Star Wars a few months ago, and much stuff. I usually write something every day into a continuing diary series of everything I've watched, a Geek's Log. What's funny about doing this review now is that the theater I work for is losing it this weekend. They gave space for Onward and The Way Back, along with a couple other things, and we're losing The Boy 2, which I did a review for the other day. So my two most recent reviews aren't going to be playing in theaters, at least the theater I work for, any longer, come a few days from now. And I myself watched this movie back in, not opening day, but I did watch it the next week, so it's been a couple weeks since I've seen it, though I do think I have a pretty solid memory of what happened, so I can still talk about it just as much as if I just get out of it now. And yes, we are looking at Fantasy Island, as I said a couple times, kind of covering that again. 2020 release. It's a new adaptation of the television series, which first premiered in 1977, ran to 1984, starring Ricardo Montalban from Star Trek II, and Hervé Villachez from Forbidden Zone, which is a movie you should go definitely check out if you like anything weird and wonderful. I'm really surprised we missed that on our podcast on musicals, because we focused a lot on weird musicals like The Apple and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, other weird takes on the genre, and completely forgot one of my favorites. As soon as it ended and I got home, like, Forbidden Zone, damn it. So go check that out. It's the first movie to have music from Danny Elfman, and it's directed by his brother Richard Elfman, and it's a lot of their performer friends around LA from the early 80s doing this weird movie. But go check it out, because it's so much better than Fantasy Island. This movie is not good, my friends. There has been a lot to say of why are we horrorizing this concept, in the same way that people joked about the same director, Jeff Wadlow, doing Truth or Dare now as a horror film, also featuring Lucy Hale, who stars in this movie as well. But it's worth noting that I don't think I've actually seen the original show. From what I've read, the first couple of seasons were covering dark material, where these fantasies were twisted and changed, and not the way people expected them to go. Maybe not to the same horror level that this has, but people tend to apparently more remember the later seasons when it became lighter fare. They're in syndication, often featured with Love Boat as its double. A show, both of these shows I've never actually seen. To know, but I do remember them being on a lot when I was a kid. I was born in 82, and I remember the syndications through the 80s and the 90s on mid-afternoon, USA, TBS, or what have you. And I actually am interested in going back and checking out some of those earlier episodes to see what they actually covered and to see how it compares to this version. Now, there is also the 1998 version with Malcolm McDowell that played for one season. I haven't seen it either, like I haven't seen the original show, so I really can't judge how this one compares to those that are going to take this as it is, and as you should. A new version of an older thing, if it's the same general concept, new execution, it shouldn't be all the old one this way. If you're looking at it from that method, you're never going to find anything interesting in whatever you watch. But we should approach this as its own thing, no matter what. Anyway, this new version has the same thing, same setup, where you have an island that grants your fantasies, but it doesn't always go the way you expect it to go. In this case, we have a bunch of young folks played by Lucy Hale, Maggie, a couple other people who don't really matter, coming out onto the island after they won a contest. Now, they've heard of the island through Reddit, through ads, through this and that, where people remark that they came out and had a good time. They don't really remember what happened, but they knew they had alcohol, they had this, they had fun, and they're coming out. So this is an established thing, which makes things kind of sometimes weird when you look at it looking back, because one of the major issues we have here is an awful script. We have a great concept. The concept's been, of course, done twice, both the long-running series and then the 1998 version, looking at your fantasies and how it affects you, and if that's what you want. But by turning all that into a movie, there's so many things they have to meet as the plot moves on, and so many explanations you have to give, and so much of a climax you have to follow through, and then trying to get all these pieces together, it just comes to this really awful script. The script was written by Jillian Jacobs, not the one from Community, Christopher Roach, and then the director Jeff Wadlow. and what feels about this is 3 different writers coming up with this particular story. It almost feels like it was handed off a couple of different times because we have so many different concepts and ideas that contradict each other as it goes through, especially when you get to the end. Without spoiling what actually happens at the end, which maybe I'll go through a little later in the video, anytime you give this any thought of the details given to us, any sort of explanation, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, we'll put it out there, people will see it, people will talk about it, we'll make our money back, and we're not going to give this a lot of thought. But that really annoys me as an audience member, as someone who really cares about story and cohesiveness in that, even though I love Italian horror film, but that's a whole different thing. This isn't that. This is something different. So it's something I expect, if they give me this information, to be able to look back and say, oh, that makes sense with this. But it doesn't. So many things that contradict itself that have no bearing of how this actually works. But the second you give it any sort of real thought, it just falls apart. But let's take a look at those particular moments. We do have Lucy Hale as our potential lead, who wants to get revenge against a friend from high school. When she realizes that the friend is real, she has to break her out, and they kind of go on an adventure across the island to come across Michael Rooker, who says something weird's going on here, and Rooker's in this. So that's the best thing about this. I buried that lead, but he's not in the trailers at all, he's not in the advertisements. But Michael Rooker is in this, and that could be enough to get you to come see us. If I knew he was in it, I'd have been much more excited. Then he says something weird's going on the island, that things are darker than they seem, but of course we all know that. We got a bland kid who wants to be a soldier because he made a mistake. He wanted to be a soldier, but his mom wouldn't let him, so being a police officer, made some more mistake. Maggie Q plays a woman who wants to reconnect with an ex, kind of hates that she made a mistake in saying no to him when he asked her to marry her. What happens if she said yes? And you got a couple brothers who are party boys who want to have this big grand party. With each of these, they have the dark twist there that Maggie Q's unhappy about where things go. Not the fact that she has a daughter now with this guy, but more of, we wonder where this twist is going to be for the darkness in this. Is that if she's unhappy about it because she knows it's not real, or she's bothered by something else that we find out a little bit later. The party boys who own the house before them, does it really matter? And that's one of the things that doesn't make too much sense. This is a fantasy. But there's a danger there. But the danger rears its head when the previous owner shows back up. Of course, this is a fantasy island, so nothing is real. So that kind of loses a lot of the steam that could come from that. Yes, people can get hurt. Yes, people can possibly die. It's really vague over actual deaths in this. But it doesn't ever feel has any weight to it, because we as the audience know that everything on the island has to be manufactured in some way. Part of it is figuring out how it's manufactured and why, and what's the point of it all. Where's the secret coming from? And of course, it's just a movie. We're not just gonna, everyone has a fantasy and goes home. We have to have that drawing force of these people start to figure out something is weird and have to fight back against it. So they know Michael Pena, who I really normally like, who's kind of really just phoning in this case as Mr. Work, that he has a secret in what he is doing. But it's really jumbled. But unfortunately, the script is the main issue here, besides the cheapness of it. No one's really giving anything meaty to work with, so we get a lot of really vapid characters who just are working their way through as we are just getting bored waiting to see where this is going, and wondering how stupid is this going to be when it gets there. There's a couple narrative changes and turns that make no sense once everything is revealed, and let's go ahead and just talk about the reveal. So we're going to get into spoilers a little bit here, because I have to talk about that in order to discuss why the script doesn't work. But this movie is just an ultimate failure. It has bad script, no tension, it looks cheap, it feels cheap, and it's just waiting for it to end to figure out how stupid it's going to get. So just like I did for the boy the other day, I'm going to give this now let's talk about why things are the way they are. The way this island works is that it has a spring at the bottom that feeds off people's energy, and when you make the deal, you sign everything there, it creates these black water figures. The water is the key here, the water you drink, then the water that makes up everything. But what I'm curious about is what the island is going for in here. We never get any real backstory to what the island is, which probably could have been cool, like an old temple and finding out these histories, but instead we just get these particular people's take on it. And then we find out that Lucy Hale, our main character, has set up this entire plan. Her fantasy was to get revenge against these people because she's insane, because she lost a guy she went out on one half date with a couple years back based upon mistakes that each of them had made. So she gets a double fantasy, I guess, because it doesn't really add up, because this is a twist that makes no sense. You see how she acted on her own when no one was watching her. In the same way that Halle Berry did in Perfect Stranger a couple years ago, where she's researching the murder that she herself has committed, because that feels like a rewrite, once they rewrote things but never went back and changed anything, so it makes sense. But it also brings up the ideas of, yeah, the island is still trying to kill everyone with these figures, but do they have their own consciousness? They're killed and they're brought back. They seem to know who they are sometimes. They seem to know that they're not in other ways. You get people who are working for the good, who are also these water monsters, and people who work for the bad are these water monsters. That makes you like, no, if people are doing this, then that's this. Who's doing what for whom? Like Julia, the assistant for Michael Pena, so we don't have tattoo in this case. Actually, we do. Spoiler alert, one of the brothers has a tattoo, it says tattoo. So he stays on the island and is the new tattoo from the original series. So luckily he doesn't get the plane. But Julia, his assistant now, is Michael Pena's dead wife. So she is part of the island's magic, but she is also helping the characters to fight the island's magic. But so is she not sentient? Because then she dies at one point and then comes back. Other people die and then they come back. And that's the looseness, and that doesn't make sense when you're watching. As soon as everything gets revealed, it's like, no. The entire audience, when each of these reveals happens, you hear the eye rolls, you hear the no's as it's revealed. But you know, even among that, where everyone's story goes is really underwhelming. Our soldier kid, it turns out that he wants to have one more connection with his dad, who died in Venezuela. But the actions and decisions that he makes while doing this make no sense if he knows this is part of the fantasy. Of the choices that he makes, the choices that everyone else is with him makes. We know that it's not going to go. We know that it's not real. He knows it's not real. Everyone knows it's not real. So nothing really adds up, and that really just takes everything out of it. Doesn't help that all the scenes are very, untense. They're shot poorly, with really bad musical score and really bad setups, and it doesn't feel like anything's ever going to really land, because everything's going to pull away at the last minute from where it needs to go. So the twist is dumb and ruins the rest of the movie. The twist also revealing why things happen the way they go doesn't work either, and the performances are really lacking. When Michael Pena is giving a bland performance, if he doesn't care, no one else does. No one. This all feels like a paycheck, and maybe, hey, spend some time on an island, have a little bit of fun, get the paycheck, maybe get some returns, and call it a day. So Fantasy Island is a nightmare. So it's not a fantasy, it's a nightmare at all. It sounds like a headline. I probably end up using that in my own. But when it comes out to rent, because it's obviously not playing in theaters anymore, probably, if you're watching this, just skip it. There's nothing really much to see. There's better things out there. It's not worth your time as a so bad it's good. It's just kind of a bland thing out there. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Go to cdv.com to see everything else that we are doing written and video-wise. And we'll see you next time. I'll review it for Onward in a couple days. I don't know if it'll be video or written, but take a look for that. And I'm not seeing the way back, so don't expect that. But we'll see you next time at CDV. Thank you.